Hello, this is Jacob again, and I am making a vlog, I don't usually make one of those, to explain the progress of my voice acting from when I started through like a year or so ago, and also to give some voice acting tips. So, I started out voice acting sometime in 2014, when I voice acted in a beginning skit of a review for Aficionados Chris. And when I started doing that, among making some small videos on my channel, I didn't actually have a microphone at the time. Actually, I just had this camcorder that I'm using right now to record myself with. And in editing, I would just split the footage from the audio, and then I would just remove the footage, and I would just use the audio. I didn't do that for very long, but I did that for like a few things until I thought of getting a mic. At first, I got this really cheap $20 mic, and really, I wouldn't recommend a mic of any kind like that. It just, looks like this, kind of pod thingy with this little, really thin stick for it. A lot of people would refer to those kind of mics as potato mics, and the quality's really low and really cheap to the point of being insufficient. Not professional quality in any way, and, it doesn't sound very good because of how cheap it is, hence why people call it a potato mic. And I haven't really used it for much. I only remember currently that I recorded one thing with it, and like maybe a few others. Somewhere along the way, I've learned about microphones like the Blue Snowball, the Blue Yeti, and among others. And of course, I thought I would upgrade and stop using my camcorder. So, in June 2015, I got a Blue Snowball. And I even made a video to test it out so that people would know that, hey, I got a new microphone at the time. And I had been using that mic for, I believe it might have been like several months, probably, somewhere under a year. But then, much later on, I thought of upgrading. I figured, you know what, it's time for an upgrade. So, I figured that I would want to upgrade from a Blue Snowball to a Blue Yeti. So, eventually, in May 2017, I bought a Blue Yeti. And not only that, but sometime before, I saw this vlog by Scribbler on how to make a sound-canceling mic box. And I'll leave a link to that in the description. And in the description of her vlog, she left the link to how she learned how to do that, which is on a site called Instructables. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. I think I would like to do this. Because for the first time that I had been voice acting for the first couple of years, you would actually be able to notice some really bad room echo in here. I'll play a sample for you.
We're on a baby hunt, and don't think we don't know how to weed 'em out. Now everybody line up!
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad, right? So I thought that I would actually use that Instructables link, and I thought that I would make one for myself. So I decided that I would also do this when I would get my Blue Yeti. And it has massively, massively improved the quality of my recordings. And most of the time, there's no room echo in my recordings because the foam in my box, and I'll get to that, it actually absorbs the sound from my voice, and I try to stay close to it. And I figured, you know what? Since I upgraded to this Blue Yeti, I don't need the Blue Snowball anymore, so I'd like to give it to someone else. And not too long after, I did. I gave my old Blue Snowball, the second one at least, to my friend, The Life on Cloud 9. You should go check out her channel. She's very talented at voice acting and singing. And recently, as of like several months ago, narration as well. And I believe she's been using that same Blue Snowball ever since. So, I believe that I will show you my recording setup, how I do it, and then I will give you some voice acting tips on what I do and what I believe would help those who want to start out with voice acting. So, as you can see here, this would be my sound-canceling mic box, as well as my Blue Yeti. You'll notice right here that it's actually on a really high bed. Because I actually got this several years ago, and I've been using it ever since. And this actually helps me because I am close to 6 feet tall. And also because of that, you'll also notice that I actually have it stacked on top of some Marvel and DC guidebooks. Nice and thick. If I didn't stack it on these books, this box right here would not be able to reach my face. So I figured, you know what, I would actually need to elevate it a bit. And you'll notice right here, inside the box, that I have a sock on my Blue Yeti. You might be wondering, why is that? Why do you have a sock on your Blue Yeti? Well, commonly when people voice act, they usually use pop filters, which will often reduce pops in your recordings, hence the name, which are actually hard to edit out, and it kind of messes up a take. And whenever you have like puffs of air, when you pronounce stuff like B's, P's, whatever, pop filters, they typically get rid of those, or at least reduce them. I have been told a while back that pop filters are not super 100% necessary. That you could just use a sock instead because of how, thick it is, I guess, and the certain amount of holes it has that are very similar to pop filters, that it works just the same. And you know what? It actually does work the same. And now for the voice acting tips portion of this vlog. So, what I do before each of my recording sessions and during is that, and this is also something that is done professionally, is to do vocal warm-ups. That way, whenever you have to do longer recording sessions, or even do a recording binge, if you do vocal warm-ups beforehand, your voice may get tired later on, and that's only natural. But if you warm up your voice, you are less likely to damage your voice or your vocal cords, and you are more likely to still have it safe each time you do stuff that's more stressful, like grunts, yelling, screaming, etc., whatever. You want to make sure that your voice is all nice and warmed up. And to give you an example, I always go back to this video on vocal warm-ups by Rachel Messer. And she listed some of her favorite vocal warm-ups there, and I thought that I would use some of those, and a lot of times I try to keep those in mind before I do voice acting, especially if I'm going to do stuff stressful before I finish recording. And this will help you in the long run if you want to do voice acting, narration, etc. And of course, whenever you're recording, you want to make sure that any time that you raise your voice and things of the like, that you don't peak your mic. And what that means is whenever the recording volume is high enough, and if your voice is loud enough, it starts to clip and starts to sound distorted. And do that too much, and I've heard that if you do that too much, it could damage your mic, and you don't want that. So, what I do is whenever I record, and I always use Audacity to record and do audio editing before I put them into my Sony Movie Studio files, is I always have my recording volume turned way down low, usually at 35 decibels whenever I'm just talking normally, even when I'm doing stuff like my deeper voices, which are even quieter than those, but I can raise those in editing. That way, whenever I have to raise my voice a bit, it doesn't come anywhere close to peaking. And whenever I actually have to yell or scream, it doesn't peak still. It may come close, but I can actually prevent damaging my mic that way. And I would highly recommend this if just, especially if you're starting out or you have been doing this for a bit of time. You never want to have your recording volume on a high level. You don't want it to be up at run 100. That could easily make your recordings peak. And like I said, you don't want that. You want it down low. That way, whenever you have to project your voice, you don't peak your mic. You don't damage your mic internally. Another thing is that whenever you do recordings, your mic will kind of give this feedback. And I don't mean like feedback like constructive criticism. I mean, there will be noise that'll actually come from the mic itself. And if you have your recording volume turned down low enough, you won't really be able to hear it at first. But if you turn the volume up enough whenever you do audio editing and amplify your voice, you will be able to notice it. I'll record a sample and then I'll play it back for you. Today was a sunny day, and Johnny decided to take his dog for a walk. And so, that was when I actually recorded it, and when it was playing on Audacity before I stopped it. Now, I'm going to show you what that recording sounds like with the background noise from the mic intact. Today was a sunny day, and Johnny decided to take his dog for a walk. You probably hear this little strange noise that kinda sounds like a fan. And now, I'm going to edit that clip where I apply noise reduction to it. And that way you won't actually hear that sound. It'll sound nice and clear. Today was a sunny day, and Johnny decided to take his dog for a walk. That sounded much better, didn't it? Yeah, that's because noise reduction. You always want to make sure that you have enough space before you start talking when you want to remove the background noise. And that includes other stuff like if somebody else is talking in a nearby room, or maybe there's sounds outside, hopefully that are nice and quiet, because if you record your recordings at a low volume, I think that should be able to make it easier to eliminate stuff like that. And of course, with noise reduction, you want to make sure that you don't remove any of the voice. You want to keep the voice tracks in there. You want to keep the recording inside, the lines inside the track. You don't want to accidentally remove any of that. So what I do in my recordings is that I always, after I click record, I always wait for at least 5 seconds, and then at 6 or 7 seconds is when I start talking, whenever I read the script. Or even sometimes when I just have stuff memorized and I can just record and I just look in here in my box and I don't have to look down here at my laptop screen. Depending on whatever you want to do. The point is you want to make sure that you have enough space between your voice and the background noise to be able to apply noise reduction properly. But you want to make sure that your voice alongside your recordings, that they're nice, crisp, and clear. You want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of background noise and you don't want a bunch of room echo, and that way it actually sounds better. Another thing is that you want to make sure that you be careful of what you consume before you record. I've learned from the book Voiceover, Voice Actor, What It's Like Behind the Mic by Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt, that certain things can mess with your voice in a negative way, and some other things can actually help keep it clear. For example, you want to drink a lot of water because it's nice and clear and it, washes out other stuff. Some things that you do not want to have include dairy, soda, if I remember correctly from this article, red meat, things of the sort. Dairy is likely to create mucus in the throat, and that can screw with your voice. And obviously you don't want that. It could make your voice sound gurgly and Also, you don't want to have soda because I read recently that apparently it can dry out your vocal cords. So I am always careful of what I eat for breakfast. Like, I have some cereal, but I always eat it dry. I don't put any milk with the cereal. Even if I did like plain milk, I would still eat it dry because I want to make sure that my voice is nice and clear. And likewise, you want to make sure that anything else you consume before recordings will not mess with your voice negatively. What you can have alongside water before you record are things like pineapple juice. I remember Brian Hall saying in one of his unwrapping videos that he uses gummy bears for his voice, and he does voice acting professionally, so I have gummy bears as well. And just under an assumption, I also have Jell-O, and if it turns out that doesn't actually help your voice, I would stop. And also, I read in the voice actor book that I mentioned a minute ago that sometimes whenever you have recordings, you might have mouth clicks come up, and that can be hard to edit out, especially if it's in the middle of a line before you stopped talking. One way to prevent that is to take a Granny Smith apple, and instead of eating it, you just take several bites into it, and each time you bite into it, you suck the juice out of it, because there's a chemical within that specific kind of apple juice that can actually help reduce the mouth clicks. I have been doing this for a few years, especially since 2015, when I actually started recording, and it has reduced mouth clicks significantly. It has helped a great deal. Another thing is that you don't really want to eat the apple before you record, because then, your stomach could gurgle. Which is also why, according to James Arnold Taylor, you want to make sure that you don't have large meals before recording, because that can also affect your voice because of how much food you had. So, just to recap, you don't want room echo because that'll hinder your recordings, especially if you try to audition for stuff. You want to make sure that you have something like with this sound canceling mic box, which has this foam in it that absorbs sound, and it reduces the room echo greatly. You actually want to start out with a good quality mic, like a Blue Snowball, and then maybe later down the line upgrade to a Blue Yeti, which is the best kind of USB mic, and maybe get something better even further down the line. You want to make sure that you don't peak your mic with recordings, and you can do this by keeping the recording volume down, like I said many times before. You want to make sure that you don't accidentally apply the noise reduction actually to the voice, just the background noise. You want to make sure that your voice is nice and clear so as to not screw up your recordings by sounding gurgly or stressed out. You want to make sure you have vocal warm-ups so as to make sure that you're less likely to damage your voice. And you want to be careful of what you consume before you record so that you want to make sure that your voice is nice and clear. So, I hope this vlog helped you out. Maybe if you want to start out with voice acting and narration and things of the like. Or maybe there were some tips in this video that you haven't considered, and you may want to apply that for yourself. If you don't have any of this other stuff, as Woody in Toy Story said, you don't have one? Get one. Anyway, thanks for watching. And this is Jacob, signing off.